She walked into that bank and then vanished without a trace. Detectives, viewers, this is where our journey begins. Let's dig into the last moment we know for certain. March 26, 1993 in Dublin. Annie McCarrick, age 26, stepped into the Abe branch in Sandymount at 11:02 that morning. CCTV captured her withdrawing some cash. She then did a quick shop at a nearby supermarket, and that's it. No calls, no receipts, no sighting we can trust after that point. For 32 years, the official story said she took a bus to Enniskerry, then popped into Johnny Fox's pub that evening. But Gardaí now believe those claims were false. Annie probably never left the city. Pause. Think. Where did she go next? Could someone have met her on the street? Did someone she trusted invite her out? Observations we know. No confirmed sightings after 11:02. Unpacked groceries in her flat on her next planned dinner date suggest she didn't return. No CCTV of her getting on any bus or leaving the area. First deduction: the trail ends right after the bank. If she vanished there, the person responsible was present before anyone knew she was gone. Question for all of us: who could have approached Annie in broad daylight in the heart of Sandymount, someone who wouldn't raise suspicion? Here's the moment things get real. Investigators zeroed in on someone inside her circle, someone who knew Annie intimately. We're not in the realm of random predators. This is someone who knew her name, her habits, maybe even her address. Clue hash 1. Annie's own friends later told Gardaí she felt uncomfortable around him. He'd been pressuring her and even slapped her once, way back in 1992. Friends sent distressed faxes at the time, faxes that were buried, ignored, filed away. Clue hash 2. He was a businessman from County Meath in his 60s, part of her social or dating circle. He'd been interviewed back in 1993, and he provided multiple alibis. But those alibis are now crumbling inconsistencies, second-hand claims, statements from relatives that don't add up. Even Annie's best friend raised this in 2022, pushing Gardaí to look deeper, and it led to the breakthrough in June 2025. Desanai. So detectives, let's break it down. He knew Annie well, close enough to harass her and be noticed. He lied or wavered on where he was in those crucial hours. He remained undetected for over 30 years, but that changed fast when eyes finally turned his way again. First logical leap: if someone she knew was both obsessed and present in her last confirmed hours, that person is our primary suspect. 30 years as a missing person case. Then suddenly, detectives call it murder. Detectives, let's zero in on the moment everything changed. March 20th, 2023. For the first time, the Gardaí publicly declared what many had long feared. Annie McCarrick's case was now officially a murder investigation. This wasn't just legal phrasing, it was a seismic shift. The case moved from a "someone disappeared" file to a full-on homicide probe. 2 men linked to Annie and her circle were identified as persons of interest. Specialists from the South Central Serious Crime Unit and the National Serious Crime Review Team were brought in. This upgrade signals conviction that investigators had gathered definitive clues suggesting foul play, not just absence. Why does this matter? Because it elevated resources and investigative focus. It allowed for more aggressive forensics and search warrants. It reframed the public and media narrative from lost to killed. Detective moment. This is where we stop treating Annie like a missing hiker who might turn up and start hunting for someone who took her life. That's the turning point. It took 32 years, but finally a breakthrough. A suspect is in Garda custody. Detectives, brace yourselves. This is where the pressure cooker turned up a notch. On June 12, 2025, a 62-year-old businessman from County Meath, someone Annie knew, was arrested under Section 4 of the Criminal Justice Act. Here's what went down. Interrogation began immediately. His phones and laptops were seized. Forensics locked in. His alibis were dissected, inconsistencies spotted. Then, after around 24 hours, he was released without charge. But even without charges, he's still the key suspect in the investigation. Why this matters? It's the first arrest ever in this case. That alone tells us Gardaí are serious. They believe they've got the right man. They now have legal ground to demand devices, property access, cooperation. It cracks open the door to forensic mining, something they couldn't do in the early 90s. Detective takeaway. The suspect has been officially pinned in the operation. His lies, his devices, his behavior all are now under forensic demolition. For the first time since 1993, the ground is literally being broken in search of Annie. Detectives, this is the physical heart of the investigation. On a quiet residential street in Clondalkin, Gardaí secured a search warrant. Why this location? It's tied to the suspect, a family property he still visits. Evidence shows Annie visited there too, not long before she disappeared. Here's what happened. Cadaver dogs were brought in, including a specialized unit from Northern Ireland. Forensic teams used ground-penetrating radar, drilling, excavation, and soil testing. Over multiple days, they carefully dig, sift, and sample every inch of the property. This isn't a surface search. It's a methodical excavation, the kind reserved for cases where the victim is believed to be buried there. Detective notes. No find yet, but that doesn't mean no evidence. Soil samples can expose decomposition traces, even if the remains were removed later. The presence of cadaver dogs means Gardaí are operating on serious intelligence, not baseless hope. As soon as they confirm any trace of human remains, it will shift the case into fast forward. The suspect's connection to Annie was not casual. Friends reported that he pressured her and made unwanted advances. In 1992, he allegedly slapped her during an argument. Gardaí believe he was obsessed and that Annie may have rejected him. That rejection, investigators suggest, triggered anger that may have led to her murder. This was not a random attack. The motive was personal. The suspect had both emotional instability and physical access to Annie in the hours following her last confirmed sighting. Modern technology opened new doors in the case. After the suspect's arrest, Gardaí seized his phones, laptops, and storage devices. Forensic teams are examining search histories, deleted files, location data, and communications from the period surrounding Annie's disappearance. Even decades later, remnants of data can reveal patterns, conversations, or traces of planning that may connect him directly to Annie's disappearance. The digital trail may contain the missing pieces investigators need to finally close the timeline. The investigation reached back to the beginning. Witnesses from 1993 were re-interviewed. Friends, associates, and relatives of both Annie and the suspect were questioned again. Statements are being cross-checked against each other, exposing inconsistencies and new contradictions. Some individuals living abroad, including in France, have been contacted as part of this renewed effort. Gardaí are systematically dismantling false alibis and identifying gaps in earlier testimonies. Each new inconsistency brings investigators closer to confirming what happened that day. At the property in Clondalkin tied to the suspect, Gardaí began an extensive search. Specialist cadaver dogs were deployed. Ground-penetrating radar scanned the site. Drilling equipment and excavation tools were used to examine both the house structure and the garden. Soil samples were collected and sent for advanced laboratory testing, looking for traces of human decomposition that may remain even if physical remains were moved. The Clondalkin property remains a focal point. Investigators believe this location may hold the key to finding Annie. The facts create a clear sequence. Annie left the bank on March 26, 1993. She was intercepted shortly after by someone she knew and trusted. The suspect had both the motive and the opportunity. He brought her to the Clondalkin property, where investigators believe she may have been murdered and possibly buried. The false sightings in Wicklow diverted attention for years, giving the suspect time and distance from suspicion. Now, with advanced forensics, digital evidence, and new witness testimonies, Gardaí are closer than ever to solving the case. The final answers may be buried in the ground or hidden in forgotten digital files, but the investigation is closing in.